Dane Calloway, weary-eyed and sore-spirited, stepped into the last drift cantina, his boots echoing against metal floors that shuddered under the pulse of neon. The overhead lights flickered with a constant, dull hum, casting his face into sharp relief. He was a man of average height, if a bit lean, but he moved with the cautious grace of someone who had skirted death one too many times and expected to do so again. Xiphos Station, perched on the edge of the Orion Drift, was a patchwork of rusted catwalks, blazing neon signs, and labyrinthine back alleys. Its inhabitants hailed from every corner of the galaxy, misfits, smugglers, mercenaries, and dreamers, all tangled together in a dance of survival. Here, fortunes could be won or lost in a single evening, and no place exemplified that truth more than the last Drift Cantina. Tonight, Dane's finances were pinned to the floor, hammered down by Orlok enforcers who demanded he settle his debts, or face a visit to the station's infamous detention bay. He had scraped by on minor smuggling jobs, short hauls that barely covered docking fees. His ship, the small cargo runner Outbound Star, was battered from too many run-ins with asteroids and pirates. Now, with no recourse, he was forced to gamble. He glanced around the tavern's hazy interior, where the swirl of exotic smoke drifted through the air, illuminated by prismatic lights. Across the room, a corner table glowed in flickering lamplight. The silhouettes of card players leaned forward, eyes glittering with tension and greed. These were high-stakes gamblers, dangerous souls with nothing left to lose or everything to gain. Dane swallowed hard. If luck would not come to him tonight, then tomorrow might never arrive. He approached the table, feeling his pulse throb in his temples. The scaly Trinoran barkeep eyed him warily from across the bar, as if expecting trouble. A hush fell over the watchers when a faint, otherworldly presence seemed to emanate from the figure seated at the far side of the table, cloaked in folds of black shimmering fabric. This was an alien of ancient pedigree, face half hidden in the shadows. All who recognized him shrank back. Veyron. Dane did not know him personally, but the name had reached his ears many times. Veyron was said to be older than some civilizations, rumored to possess arcane knowledge from the dawn of interstellar travel. He came and went across star systems, always searching for artifacts or forging secret deals. No one knew precisely what he was, except that his bloodline boasted uncanny powers, and that he rarely lost when he gambled. Taking a seat, Dane tried to steady his shaking hands as he retrieved a battered deck of Arcturian fate cards. Yet before he could speak, an attendant slid a new deck onto the table, brandishing the official stamp of the station's gaming authority, a sign that the game would be regulated, or so they claimed. But in this corner of the galaxy, regulation meant very little. Veyron's black eyes glinted from beneath his hood. "I see you come here with heavy burdens, human," he said, voice resonating with a cadence that felt older than time. "Shall we begin?" Dane nodded. He could sense the Orlok enforcers skulking in the shadows, arms folded. He had no choice. As the first hand was dealt, sweat beaded on his brow. Cards were turned, bets were called, chips slid across the table. If he lost this night, the penalty would be more than empty pockets. He might forfeit his life. Hand after hand, tension mounted. Dane's meager credit stash dwindled. The watchers edged closer. Finally, the moment arrived when all sides recognized that the next hand could decide it all. Dane had mere scraps left to bet, a handful of chips that would never be enough. If he folded now, he lost everything. But if he dared a final gamble, his palm trembled against his cards. He looked up at Veyron, whose expression remained unreadable. Then the ancient alien spoke, softly but clearly. "I will wager something you do not expect, gambler." The entire room stilled, as though the cosmic threads themselves paused in anticipation. Dane's jaw tightened. The Orlok enforcer shifted. Veyron raised one long-fingered hand and said, "I will wager my daughter, Selara, in this game. If you win, you gain her." A shocked gasp rippled through the crowd. Even the barkeep stopped polishing glasses. The words sounded archaic, hearkening to days when dynasties were sealed by strange bargains. Veyron continued, voice a low murmur that resonated. "But understand, her fate is entwined with certain obligations, certain, shall we say, contracts of blood and authority. If you lose, you forfeit more than your meager chips. You shall be bound to me in a manner I choose. The silence that followed weighed heavily. Dane, desperate to clear his debts, and seeing no alternative, gave a curt nod. The next hand was dealt. His lungs felt constricted, and time slowed to a crawl. One by one, the other gamblers folded, fearful of interfering in what was clearly becoming a cosmic drama. In the end, only 2 cards remained face down on the table, Dane's and Veyron's. Chips and tokens formed a shimmering pile between them. A hush blanketed the cantina as Dane exhaled, turned his final card, and revealed a combination seldom seen. Triumphant figures and suits aligned in an improbable sequence. He had won. The watchers erupted in whispers, half in awe, half in terror. Veyron leaned back, eyes narrowing in strange contemplation. Then he rose, standing taller than most men in the bar, and a faint, bitter laugh escaped him. "You do not realize what you have done," Veyron said, voice cold as the void. "But fate has chosen you. The contract stands, mortal. My daughter is now, by ancient law, yours. Yet you will come to see that the price of this victory is not paid in mere credits." And so began a night that would alter the galaxy's destiny. A hush clung to the thick air, as though every person in the last drift cantina feared the cosmic repercussions of Veyron's words. Dane's heart hammered in his chest. He struggled to piece together how this all had happened so fast. Then the doors to the cantina burst open. Galactic Authority troopers, clad in shining armor and carrying pulse rifles, swept in. Their presence radiated official power, the kind that rarely cared about local station politics. With them came a voice on a mechanical loudspeaker. "Stand aside. The area is under authority lockdown. We have reports of contraband dealings and infiltration. Surrender any fugitives." The watchers scrambled. Some dove for the exits, others ducked under tables. Dane stiffened, his eyes flicking toward the Orlok enforcers, who themselves seemed to be fading into the crowd to avoid trouble. Meanwhile, Veyron stood unmoving, as though he expected this. Suddenly, from behind him, a figure emerged, a striking, violet-skinned alien woman, tall and lithe, with sweeping silver-white hair that cascaded around her shoulders. 2 golden eyes blazed from her regal face. She wore a sleek bodysuit of dark material etched with swirling patterns that hinted at hidden power. She was Selara, Veyron's daughter. She cast a single, burning glance at Dane, then at Veyron. Something unreadable flickered in her gaze. Anger, perhaps, or betrayal. Then she hissed to her father in a language that resonated softly, like distant star chimes. Before Veyron could respond, one of the Galactic Authority troopers marched forward and shouted, "You there, alien female, we have reason to believe you're wanted for grand treason in the Zalari sector and other charges." Selara did not flinch. Instead, she raised a slim hand, and a swirling, crackling energy field flickered to life around her fingers. Quantum rift technology, illegal in half the galaxy, sparked into being, distorting the air with waves of shimmering brilliance. The trooper yelled for backup, but it was too late. Selara lunged forward, weaving a pattern in the air, and suddenly the bar was engulfed in chaos. Tables overturned. The troopers slammed against walls as invisible forces sent them careening. Dane's eyes widened. He had heard rumors of advanced telekinetic weaponry, but never seen it up close. "Dane Calloway," Veyron said quietly, snapping him out of his daze. The ancient alien nodded toward Selara. "Go with her now, or lose everything you have won. The contract is in motion." Dane opened his mouth to argue, but the swirl of conflict yanked him off balance. Selara locked eyes with him. He saw the faintest flicker of uncertainty in her gaze, but also fierce determination. Without words, she seized his wrist. The neon haze and drifting smoke turned into a kaleidoscope of colors as she activated the shimmering field around them. "Move," she barked, her accent thick but her meaning clear. Dane stumbled, half lost in the disorienting swirl of crackling energy. One instant he saw the battered walls of the last drift cantina. The next instant, the world twisted sideways. A wrenching sensation tore at his stomach, like free-falling through a black hole. They emerged in a metal corridor lit by harsh overhead bulbs. The air stank of engine coolant and ion residue. Alarms blared in the distance. Selara didn't stop. She dragged him forward through a hatch, up a short flight of steps, and into a cramped cockpit. The Starblade Phantom. The ship's engines were already humming, her systems primed for immediate takeoff. Dane had been around enough vessels to know this was no ordinary transport. Its lines were sleek, cunningly built for speed, and the instrumentation glowed with advanced technology he had only glimpsed in rumors. Selara shoved him into a co-pilot's seat. "Strap in, human," she said, voice vibrating with tension. From outside, Dane could hear the metallic clang of docking clamps disengaging. A distant voice rang out over the station comms, ordering them to stand down. But the Starblade Phantom's thrusters roared to life, and in a flash of blazing engines, the ship tore from the docking bay, out into the cosmic night. Inside the cockpit, breathless and heart-pounding, Dane watched stars swirl through the forward viewport as Selara guided them away from Xiphos station. The swirling dust of the Orion drift glimmered like 1,000 shards of broken glass. Alarm klaxons from the station's security grid lit up the sensors. "We're being tracked," Selara snapped. "They'll send interceptors." Dane fumbled for the seat's harness, mind still reeling from the bizarre turn of events. He had won a card game, and now, apparently, he was forcibly married to an alien princess? At least, that's what Veyron's words suggested. "Look," Dane said, swallowing hard. "I don't know what's going on, or what kind of." She cut him off, pressing a series of switches that unleashed a thrumming energy surge beneath the ship's hull. Quantum slip jump engaged. "Hold on." He didn't have time to protest. The Starblade Phantom lurched, stars stretching into bright lines of distortion. Within moments, they were hurled across a slipstream corridor. It lasted only seconds, but when they emerged, Xiphos station was far behind. Dane released a shaky breath, then turned to Selara. "So, I suppose you're my wife now." The question fell like an anvil in the hush that followed. Selara swiveled her golden gaze at him, her lips curving in a slight snarl. "You know nothing, human," she said quietly. "And if I had my way, that foolish bet would never have been made." Their eyes locked, tension crackling between them. Neither spoke for several beats of Dane's racing heart. She inhaled, seemingly deciding that some degree of explanation was necessary. "I am Selara of the Obsidian Throne, exiled daughter of Veyron," she began, her voice tinged with equal parts anger and sorrow. "By ancient tradition, my father holds power to bind suitors to me under strict contract. But you, I presume, stumbled into this arrangement by chance. Is that correct?" Dane nodded slowly. "I had debts, I was desperate. I didn't know your father would." "Silence," she hissed. Then her anger softened, if only barely. "I must check the bond's authenticity. My father is cunning. He would not lightly wager me, nor would he let an unworthy man claim me. There must be more at play here." The truth of her statement unsettled Dane. In that moment, he realized that the simple card game had triggered something beyond any normal bet. Veyron had orchestrated this with an agenda, and Dane was now caught in the middle. As the hum of the engines leveled out, Selara turned her attention to the ship's console, running scans to ensure they were not being followed. Meanwhile, Dane found himself staring at her, noting the faint glow of her skin, the regal lines of her face, the fierce intelligence in her eyes. He was in way over his head. Outside, the starfield glistened, and the Starblade Phantom pressed on through the darkness. A hush settled in the cockpit as they both grappled with the enormity of the situation. And so, in the blink of an eye, a rogue pilot had become the husband to an alien princess, and the seeds of an intergalactic power struggle were sown. Hours later, the ship drifted in a quiet sector beyond standard shipping lanes. The thrusters were powered down to minimal output, making them harder to track. In the cockpit, an uneasy tension weighed the air. Selara knelt before a console that displayed swirling runes and glyphs, an archaic script that Dane could not decipher. Her golden eyes flicked with concentration, scanning lines of data that scrolled across the screen. Dane stood awkwardly behind her, arms folded. He wanted answers, but he also had enough sense not to provoke her anger. Finally, she turned and regarded him with an inscrutable expression. "There is a bond," she said, voice quiet. "It's woven into the cosmic tapestry by an ancient contract system, one that predates most legal codes in the galaxy." Dane ran a hand through his short, unruly hair. "Okay, so what does that mean?" "We're bound. Like married." Solara's lips tightened at the word. In my culture, marriage is more than a ceremony. It's a union sanctified by certain mystical energies. My father, as the keeper of the obsidian throne, wields these archaic powers. When he wagered me in that game, he triggered an unbreakable promise, recognized by powers both legal and cosmic. Dane felt a bead of sweat trace down his neck. So, can we break it? She hesitated. Not easily. The binding is recognized by the spectral wardens, an order that enforces such covenants across star systems. If they learn of our union, they will demand we fulfill the ritual. Otherwise, they will declare a galaxy-wide bounty on us both. Dane's gut twisted. He had tangled with the wardens once before, a minor smuggling fiasco that ended with him narrowly escaping their blockade. They were not to be trifled with. So, he said slowly, we either go through with this cosmic marriage ritual, or we're on the run from an ancient order. Selara rose to her feet, turning off the console. She stood nearly eye level with him, her gaze unwavering. There is more. My father exiled me because I challenged his rule, his tyranny, to be precise. But I am still heir to the obsidian throne. This union, if completed according to the old rites, would place you in a position of authority as well. He blinked. Authority? That's the last thing I need. I'm a small-time pilot, not a king. A sardonic half-smile crossed her face. That's precisely what makes this situation so bizarre. My father must have foreseen some benefit in binding you to me. Perhaps he expects you to fail, thus forcing me back under his control. Or maybe there's an even deeper plan. Regardless, we are entangled now. Dane exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the galaxy on his shoulders. So what next? We can't hide forever. No, she agreed. We'll need allies. We must discover the full extent of my father's plot. And to do that, we should travel to someone who knows the arcane aspects of the Obsidian Throne's line. A scholar, perhaps, or a renegade mystic. Outside, the starfield was silent. Dane's mind churned. After a life spent outrunning debts, hustling for meager jobs, and drifting from port to port, he suddenly found himself at the center of a cosmic drama. Part of him longed to flee, to jump ship and disappear. Yet something about Selara's resolute determination stirred him. All right, he said with a resigned sigh. Where do we start? Selara keyed in a set of coordinates. We begin on the planet Viridian, in the Inxis sector. There's a man named Corin Riggle, an expert on old contracts and astral rights. If anyone can unravel what my father is planning, it's him. He owes me a favor. Dane nodded, stepping toward the navigation console. Coordinates locked. I'll handle the pilot's seat. A faint glimmer of appreciation flickered in Selara's eyes. Very well, husband, she said, her voice dripping with ironic emphasis. He almost laughed at the absurdity of the situation, but the tension in the cockpit smothered any hint of humor. Instead, he settled into the pilot's chair, hands deftly dancing across the controls. The Starblade Phantom responded like a living thing, thrusters humming to life. Selara took the co-pilot seat. Silence stretched between them, pregnant with unspoken thoughts. Then, in a subdued voice, she murmured, "We may not like it, but we must work together now." He glanced over at her, nodding. Agreed. With that, the Starblade Phantom slipped into faster-than-light travel, its engines warping space-time around it in a dazzling spiral of luminance. In the hush of that leap between stars, Dane and Selara found themselves bound by fate, forging ahead into mysteries untold. Neither could know how deeply their connection would reverberate through the cosmos, or the trials they would face before the journey's end. Hyperspace lines rippled across the viewport, painting the cockpit in shifting hues of blue and white. Dane had made countless jumps before, but the Starblade Phantom's slip-drive technology proved more efficient than any craft he had flown. Instead of the usual long hours or days in FTL, they emerged near Viridian after only a short pulse of time. At first glance, Viridian appeared as a lush, green world marbled with white clouds. Oceans sparkled in turquoise bands, while tall mountain peaks protruded from the continents, their slopes draped in thick jungles. As they neared the planet, the communications console crackled. A universal translator clicked on, revealing a stern voice. Inbound vessel, identify yourself or prepare to be fired upon. This is Viridian Defense. Selara leaned forward, pressing a panel. This is Captain Selara, requesting permission to land at the city of Glassel. A pause. Then the voice returned, slightly more subdued. Coordinates for Glassel's eastern pad are granted. Please be aware that planetary security is on high alert due to recent infiltration attempts. You will be scanned upon entry. When the comm shut off, Dane shot Selara a questioning glance. Infiltration attempts? That doesn't bode well. She grimaced. My father has many agents. It's possible he's already anticipating our moves. Guiding the ship through the atmosphere, Dane marveled at Viridian's beauty. Broad fields of luminescent flora, spindly trees that glowed with ethereal light at their tips, and rivers that shone like liquid silver under the warm sun. Still, tension coiled in his stomach, as though expecting trouble at every turn. They landed on a circular platform perched at the edge of Glassel City, a sprawling urban landscape of vine-covered spires and arching bridges. The architecture blended advanced technology with the planet's natural elements, forming a harmonious tapestry of glass, metal, and greenery. Almost immediately, a squad of Viridian security officers approached. Their uniforms were sleek, tinted a deep forest green. One of them, presumably the commander, lifted a scanning device and swept it over Selara and Dane. She frowned at the readings, but said nothing. Instead, she offered a curt nod. You may proceed, but no disturbances. We are not as tolerant as Xiphos Station. Selara and Dane wasted no time. Escaping the watchful eyes of the security detail, they hurried through the winding streets of Glassel, passing under crystalline arches and across botanical plazas. The air smelled of sweet blossoms, and bioluminescent insects flitted in the shade of the city's sprawling canopies. They arrived at a modest courtyard with a trickling fountain, overshadowed by tall, twisting trees. Selara led him to a narrow doorway, pressing a sequence on a hidden panel. The door slid open, revealing a dim interior crammed with shelves of dusty tomes, data cylinders, and bizarre contraptions. A figure emerged from behind a cluttered workbench. Corin Wriggle. He was a tall, lanky human with gray hair bound in a loose ponytail and spectacles perched on his nose, a rarity in a galaxy brimming with ocular implants. He blinked in surprise at seeing Selara, and his gaze jumped to Dane. Well, Corin said, I never thought I'd see you again, Selara. You've been quite the talk of certain circles. She nodded curtly, stepping into the workshop. I need your help, Corin. My father's invoked an ancient contract. He wagered me in a card game. And this human, Dane, has won. Corin nearly dropped the small device he was holding. He wagered you? Are you serious? Dane lifted a hand, feeling awkward. Yeah, it caught me off guard, too. Corin frowned deeply, setting aside his device. Veyron is meddling with cosmic laws again. That can only mean trouble. Come, both of you sit. They made their way to a small sitting area amid precariously stacked books. Corin tapped a screen, pulling up a digital volume filled with arcane symbols that seemed to dance in the air. Let me see if I can find any references to your father's line and the obsidian throne. Minutes stretched into hours as Corin delved into his archives, sometimes mumbling to himself in half-coherent phrases. Selara paced the room, restless. Dane watched her, noting the slight tension in her posture, the occasional flicker of worry in her eyes. Finally, Corin exhaled, resting his elbows on the table. I've found multiple references to the throne's lineage. It says here that any forced contract involving the direct descendants of the throne enacts a rite of fates. This is not just legal, it's metaphysical. It binds your destinies, potentially unlocking powers that connect to the throne itself. Dane's stomach lurched. He remembered how strange reality had seemed since the moment he won that hand of cards. He could almost feel some invisible thread linking him to Selara. Selara leaned over the display. How do we stop it? Or at least control it? Corin sighed. The Rite of Fates has only one official resolution: the matrimonial ceremony under the triple moons of Raylath. If the ceremony completes, your union is sealed. If you try to break the bond beforehand, it could unravel cosmic energies that hold entire star systems in fragile equilibrium. Dane rubbed his forehead, feeling a headache forming. So, if we don't go through with it, we risk cosmic catastrophe? Corin nodded gravely. Yes, or at the very least, you'll be hunted by the spectral wardens for violating a fundamental contract. And they won't stop. An uneasy silence fell. At length, Selara spoke, her tone steeled with determination. Then we have to attend the ceremony, but on our terms. I won't become my father's pawn. Dane looked at her, meeting her golden eyes. Agreed. We'll do this, but we'll find a way to break his hold, or at least loosen it. I have no interest in being a puppet, either. Corin scratched his chin. The ceremony on Rayleigh is heavily guarded by tradition. The spectral wardens will oversee it, but so will other factions, religious zealots, political opportunists, bounty hunters, you name it. If you go there openly, you're walking into a den of vipers. Selara's voice was unwavering. Better to face them than spend our lives running. My father wants this done. Let's see if we can turn his own ritual against him. Dane swallowed, a flicker of resolve stirring in his chest. He had always been a gambler at heart, but this was the highest stake he had ever faced. All right, he said, then let's plan carefully. As they began to discuss strategy, none noticed the faint scuttling of a small, insectoid device creeping along the window ledge outside, a spy drone, silently transmitting every word. In a private chamber across the stars, a figure watched, smiling darkly. Over the next few days, Viridian's tranquil facade belied the tension simmering in the shadows. Selara and Dane, hiding in Corin's labyrinthine workshop, prepared for the journey to Rayleigh. They studied the ancient rites of the Obsidian Throne, gleaning every clue that might grant them an edge. Corin proved invaluable. He possessed knowledge of arcane ceremonies gathered from decades of research. Under his guidance, Selara learned incantations and seals that might disrupt or redirect the flow of cosmic power. Dane, though lacking her innate abilities, absorbed what tactical knowledge he could. He also scavenged the black markets of Glassel, acquiring false transponder codes and stolen passkeys that might get them past prying authorities. One afternoon, as a shaft of golden sunlight pierced the workshop's dusty windows, Selara emerged from a side chamber, wearing a sleek set of armor-like attire. It was forged from an alloy that shimmered with subtle purple undertones, tailored to her lithe frame. At her belt hung a short, curved blade of alien design, etched with swirling patterns. Dane paused mid-sentence, momentarily taken by her regal bearing. For all their forced union, he couldn't help but admire her resolve and natural grace. She caught his gaze, arching an eyebrow. It was my mother's armor, before she vanished. Corin kept it safe for me. If we're to face the wardens, I must appear as is proper for a princess of the throne. Dane nodded slowly. You look formidable, he said, meaning it as a compliment. Corin scratched the stubble on his chin. Formidable indeed. Now, for you, Dane, I have an energy pistol, also a small shield generator that can absorb a few hits. We can't have you charging into a cosmic ceremony unprotected. Dane inspected the pistol, a compact design that fit comfortably in his grip. A new wave of apprehension washed over him. The deeper they ventured, the more the weight of the galaxy pressed upon them. Selara studied Dane for a moment. My father will likely expect you to buckle under pressure, or perhaps to betray me. I suggest we show him otherwise. Her words stirred an odd sense of pride in Dane. I'm not in the habit of backing down, he said. But I do want to know one thing. Why are you so intent on us controlling this outcome? Couldn't you simply have fled alone? She hesitated, as if choosing her words carefully. It's more than just my freedom, or yours. The Obsidian Throne exerts an influence on countless lives. If my father cements his power through this contract, he'll tighten his grip on the throne's dominions and tear them apart, exploiting their resources. I refuse to stand by and watch. That's why he exiled me. Now, this forced marriage has given me a chance to challenge him directly. Dane processed that. So, we're basically trying to topple a tyrant, and the best way is to attend our own wedding on a moonlit planet? A wry smile tugged at her lips. Strange as it sounds, yes. They spent the rest of that day finalizing details, forging new IDs to conceal their approach to Rayleigh, mapping potential escape routes if things went sour, and assembling gear that might disrupt the Warden's watchers. All the while, the spy drone continued its silent vigil, relaying every plan to an unseen observer. A presence coalesced in the depths of the galaxy, a tall figure with dark robes and inscrutable eyes, whose pale fingers drummed against a gilded armrest. There was no question now. The bride and groom would indeed appear on Rayleigh. And in that figure's mind, the seeds of triumph took root. On the outskirts of Glassel, near a series of cliffs that overlooked a canyon of glowing foliage. Dane crouched behind a rocky outcrop. Selara was beside him, scanning the distance through a small monocular device. They had ventured beyond the city to meet with a group of rogue mercenaries rumored to oppose the Obsidian Throne's expansion. If they could strike an alliance, perhaps their infiltration of Rayleigh would have an extra layer of support. As the sun dipped below the horizon, turning the sky into a blaze of pink and orange, a hover vehicle approached, stirring dust in its wake. 3 figures disembarked. The first was a stocky man with a patch over one eye, the second a lean woman sporting a half-shaved head, and the third a tall reptilian alien with a ridge of spines along its skull. They scanned the canyon warily, weapons at the ready. Selara stepped forward, cloak trailing behind her. "We're here to talk business," she called. "We have a proposition that could benefit you, and every soul who wants to see the throne weakened." The mercenaries regarded her with caution, but no immediate hostility. The woman with the shaved head nodded. "Speak, but don't try any tricks." Dane hung back, keeping a hand near his energy pistol. He studied the merc's body language, a subtle readiness that suggested they wouldn't hesitate to fight if things went sideways. Selara explained their plan in concise terms. They would soon travel to Rayleigh for the Rite of Fates, a cosmic ceremony that could reshape the power structure of the galaxy. Their goal was to subvert it and prevent Veyron from seizing complete control. If the mercenaries could serve as a distraction or intercept any reinforcements that Veyron or the Wardens summoned, it could grant Selara and Dane the window they needed to flip the ritual on its head. At her final words, the stocky man grunted. "You want us to cross the spectral Wardens? And possibly the entire throne's retinue? Even we aren't that crazy." The reptilian alien clicked its tongue, eyes glimmering in the twilight. "Yet, a toppled Veyron might bring a new era, one more profitable for those who help." The woman frowned, crossing her arms. "We have demands. If we do this, we want safe passage through the throne's territories for our operations, and a portion of the spoils from any, shall we say, rearrangement of taxes." Selara inclined her head. "Agreed. You have my word as the rightful heir to the throne." The woman smirked. "Your word might mean nothing if you fail, princess." Dane stepped up, placing a gentle hand on Selara's shoulder. "So come prepared. This is the best shot you've got at crippling the throne's power structure." After a tense moment, the mercenaries nodded in unison. The woman spoke again. "We'll be there. We'll create a diversion on Rayleigh. Maybe slip in some contraband. Maybe sabotage a few ships. Don't expect us to be your knights in shining armor, though. We're just there to make a profit." "That's enough," Selara replied. No more needed to be said. With that, the mercenaries returned to their vehicle, gliding away into the dusk. Dane and Selara watched them depart, unsure whether their new allies would keep their word. But desperation forced them to trust any glimmer of hope. Overhead, the first stars began to appear in the violet sky. A warm breeze rustled the glowing leaves in the canyon below. Dane turned to Selara, noticing how her violet skin caught the soft light, how her golden eyes reflected a tired determination. He opened his mouth to speak, but a roar of engines cut him off. They spun around to see a cluster of small, agile ships streaking toward the city's far edge. Within seconds, the calm hush of evening was replaced by the wail of alarms. "Bounty hunters," Selara said sharply. "They must have tracked us here." "Back to Corinth," Dane urged, activating a small wristcom to hail their own ship. They sprinted through the winding paths, hearts pounding. By the time they arrived at Corin's workshop, a skirmish had already begun. Corin crouched behind an overturned table at the entrance, firing blasts from a handheld energy cannon. Several men in dark, armored suits were ducking behind crates in the street, returning fire with pulse rifles. Dane dropped into cover beside Corin, weapon raised. "How'd they find us?" Corin grimaced. "No idea, but they're well equipped." Selara took position behind a column and, with a swift gesture, conjured a faint ripple in the air. The nearest bounty hunter found his rifle twisting out of his hands, as if guided by a phantom force. He shouted in surprise, stumbling out of cover, and Corin nailed him with a blast that sent him sprawling. A second bounty hunter tried to flank them, but Dane's quick reflexes kicked in. He pivoted, firing a searing bolt of energy that grazed the hunter's shoulder. The armored man cried out, diving behind a crate. Laser blasts whizzed overhead, scarring the walls and blowing apart a stack of old tomes. Sparks rained down in the dim workshop. Selara clenched her fists, focusing on another telekinetic surge. This time, an unseen force yanked the crate from behind, which two bounty hunters cowered. Exposed, they scrambled to regroup, only to be met by Corin's unerring shots. After a tense minute of chaos, the would-be attackers either lay unconscious or retreated into the night. Sirens wailed from distant city streets, meaning more security forces were inbound. Corin wiped sweat from his brow. That was too close. You two better leave Viridian immediately, or you'll just bring more trouble down on my head. Selara nodded, struggling to catch her breath. We're sorry, Corin, but thank you for everything. He pushed his spectacles up his nose. Just be sure to succeed in your plan. The galaxy can't handle another century under your father's tyranny. With that, Selara and Dane rushed to the Starblade Phantom, powering up the engines, while Corin offered a final wave from the workshop threshold. In moments, they lifted off, slicing through the night sky. Dane navigated them out of the planet's atmosphere with skill, weaving past a few scrambled security drones. The battered hull rattled slightly, but soon they were free of Viridian's gravity well. As they prepared for a jump, Selara stared out at the canopy of stars. It's time, she whispered. We set course for Rayleigh. Dane keyed in the coordinates Corin had provided. Outside the viewport, the swirling cosmic tapestry beckoned, promising danger and destiny. They jumped, and behind them, a shadowy vessel, running silent and cold, slipped into pursuit, its pilot receiving whispered orders from a cloaked figure far away. Traveling to Rayleigh took them through an undercharted corridor of space, dotted with dark nebulae that twisted and flickered like living shadows. The Starblade Phantom's instruments picked up ghostly echoes, anomalies that pricked at Dane's nerves. Selara studied the star charts, occasionally glancing at a ceremonial text that Corin had provided. The closer they drew to Rayleigh, the more she seemed to feel a pull in her very blood. There is an energy in this sector, she murmured. It resonates with the old powers. My father always said the obsidian throne was once crafted from the heart of a dying star, and that star's essence flows through my lineage. Dane tried to process her words, though they felt more mythic than scientific. Still, he couldn't deny the goosebumps rising on his arms. Everything about this mission felt larger than life, as if they were merely pawns in a cosmic chess match. The ship's console beeped an alert. We've got a tail, Dane muttered. Something's following at extreme sensor range. Selara frowned. Let them follow. Once we reach Rayleigh, everything will converge. He marveled at her composure. Only a short while ago, he was a rogue pilot buried in debt. Now, he was heading to an ancient ritual that bound him to a princess of cosmic destiny. He wasn't sure if he should laugh or cry at the absurdity. A few hours later, they emerged from a slip jump near Rayleigh's system. The star overhead was a pulsing red giant, bathing the region in crimson luminescence. Rayleigh itself was a medium-sized planet circled by three massive moons, each tinted a different hue: silver, lavender, and pale gold. Together, they formed an astronomical wonder that drew pilgrims from across the galaxy. As the Starblade Phantom approached orbit, the sensors lit up with multiple contacts. Capital ships, smaller cruisers, and private vessels orbited the planet like vultures awaiting a feast. Bounty hunters, diplomats, religious fanatics, and mercenaries. Everyone wanted to witness the fabled triple moon rite. Dane's grip on the controls tightened. This is a veritable blockade, he muttered. How do we slip through unnoticed? Selara clicked open a comm channel with newly forged credentials. We'll use the false transponder codes. Hopefully, that and some bribes will grant us clearance. They transmitted the codes. A moment later, a bored-sounding orbital traffic controller responded. Vessel identified as Silver Comet. You are cleared for descent to coordinates G82. Welcome to Rayleigh. Conduct yourselves in accordance with Warden protocols. Dane exhaled in relief. That was easier than expected. Selara's expression remained grim. It won't remain easy for long. They glided past a massive cruiser bedecked with insignias of the spectral wardens, a stylized triple moon crest. The presence of that vessel made Dane's stomach lurch. He had heard stories of the warden's brutal efficiency, stories of entire fleets vaporized for defying cosmic contracts. At last, they descended toward Raylath's surface. The sky was tinged a permanent dusky rose from the star's light. As they neared the landing pad, the silhouette of ancient temples rose in the distance, carved from black stone. Countless pilgrims and delegates shuffled across wide courtyards, preparing for the grand ceremony that would commence when the three moons aligned. With a hiss of hydraulics, the Starblade Phantom settled onto the designated platform. The moment the engines powered down, a group of Warden acolytes approached, robed in dark garments adorned with silver glyphs. They stood in silent vigil, as though sensing the importance of any new arrivals. Selara took a steadying breath, meeting Dane's gaze. "This is it. From here on, we're in their domain." He nodded, checking his gear one last time. "Let's hope our plan works, and that we're not walking into a slaughter." Side by side, they exited the ship, stepping into the crimson twilight. Soft chanting drifted from the distant temples, interspersed with the hum of technology and the whispers of gathered crowds. Far above, the triple moons loomed, each following a slow orbit that would converge in a few standard days. The stage was set for an event that might reshape the galaxy's destiny. And somewhere in that teeming mass of pilgrims and visitors, watchers lurked, agents of Veyron, bounty hunters seeking a grand payday, opportunistic mercenaries itching for chaos, and perhaps even sympathetic rebels hoping Selara might succeed. The air smelled of incense and dust. A heavy sense of fate lay over the planet, as though it had waited eons for this moment. With Selara's armor gleaming under the blood-red sun and Dane at her side, they began the walk toward the labyrinthine paths that led to the core of Raylath's ancient temples. Each step felt like a drumbeat in the approach to the Rite of Fates, a ceremony that would either chain them forever or free the galaxy from an age-old tyranny. By day, Raylath's surface glowed under the stark light of the red giant star. By night, the planet sank into an eerie gloom, punctuated by the luminescent arcs of its three moons. Scattered around the planet were old monuments, massive stone pillars carved with cryptic sigils, relics of a bygone age when the Wardens first rose to power. Dane and Selara found temporary lodging in a modest stone abode on the outskirts of the main temple complex. The structure was simple, a single large room, an adjoining wash area, and a rooftop terrace where one could watch the sky. They paid in precious artifacts that Selara had brought, ensuring the owner asked no questions. "I'll gather information," Selara announced, strapping on her cloak. "The ceremony is only a few days away, and the final schedule is always posted near the Temple Arcadium." Dane frowned, checking his energy pistol. "Want me to come with you?" She hesitated. "It might be best if I go alone. Your face might attract attention." He nodded reluctantly. "All right, be careful." She slipped into the night, moving with an effortless grace. After she left, Dane paced the room, nerves on edge. Out the window, he spotted flickers of torchlight bobbing among the temple gardens, and beyond that, the silhouette of a towering obelisk etched with runes older than his imagination could fathom. Despite his fatigue, he decided to scout the rooftop for a vantage point. Ascending the narrow stone steps, he emerged onto a flat terrace. The air was cool, scented with the faint tang of alien flora. In the sky, the three moons drifted in a slow dance, each reflecting pale luminescence across Raylath's ancient stone structures. He approached the low terrace wall, scanning the vista below. Pockets of pilgrims sat around small fires, chanting prayers or engaging in hushed conversations. Off to the side, an elaborate pavilion stood, guarded by tall, silent figures in black armor. The spectral wardens. They moved with an almost mechanical precision. Their presence alone was enough to send a chill through Dane's bones. He remembered the stories of entire star systems bending to the Warden's will. This was their sacred domain, after all, a place where they enforced cosmic contracts with unwavering zeal. Suddenly, something flickered at the edge of his vision, a silhouette on a neighboring rooftop, crouched behind a decorative statue. Alarmed, Dane ducked behind the terrace wall, peering cautiously. He glimpsed the glint of a reflective lens, some kind of scope or binocular. The figure was watching him. A bounty hunter? A spy from Veyron? Either way, it spelled trouble. Dane quietly descended the stairs, returning to the lodging's interior. He shut the door, checked the locks, and waited in tense silence. Minutes crawled by, each passing moment gnawing at his nerves. Finally, Selara returned. Her expression was grim. The Temple Arcadium is already abuzz with rumors. The wardens have posted official notices for a grand union ritual between a princess of an ancient line and her chosen consort. Clearly, Father has let them know I'm here, though perhaps not by name. They're expecting us. Dane rubbed the back of his neck. We've got watchers on adjacent rooftops. I spotted at least one. They must be verifying our location. Selara nodded. Then we move swiftly. We have only a few days until the triple moons converge. We'll need to position ourselves for the final ceremony. But if we appear too soon, we'll be cornered. She paused, her golden eyes flicking to Dane. Also, I've made contact with the mercenaries we met on Viridian. They're arriving tomorrow. They'll provide a distraction if needed. He felt a surge of relief. Good. We'll need every edge we can get. Exhausted, they sat on opposite sides of the room, going over possible strategies. Selara recounted the steps of the ritual as gleaned from Corin's texts, how the officiating warden would invoke cosmic energies, linking bride and groom. Under normal circumstances, the rite of fates would simply confirm an ancient marriage vow. But in this twisted scenario, it could empower Veyron or open a path for Selara to contest his rule. At length, sleep beckoned. Dane lay on a pallet of cushions, drifting in and out of fitful dreams. He dreamt of swirling starlight, of a purple-skinned princess beckoning him, of a throne carved from obsidian that pulsed like a beating heart. He awoke just before dawn to find Selara still awake, gazing out the small window. A sliver of silver moonlight caught her profile, revealing an expression caught between determination and sorrow. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she turned to him. "Sometimes I wonder if it would have been better if you had lost that card game," she whispered. "None of this burden would be on you." He swallowed, sitting up. "I might have ended up dead or worse if the Orlok enforcers had their way. So maybe this is the universe giving me another chance." A faint smile curved her lips. "You truly believe in second chances?" He shrugged. "I believe we make our own chances, mostly. But something tells me there's a bigger tapestry at work here, weaving our threads." She held his gaze for a moment, then returned her attention to the faint glimmer of dawn's red light. Outside, the planet stirred with quiet expectancy, as though bracing for a momentous event. And in the depths of Raylath's stone corridors, hidden watchers prepared for the final act of a drama centuries in the making. On the final day before the triple moons aligned perfectly, Raylath buzzed with restless energy. Processions of robed figures shuffled toward the grand temple. The air was thick with incense smoke, and bells rang in haunting melodies across the ancient courtyards. Dane and Selara stood together in the lodging's single room, checking their gear. She wore her mother's armor beneath a ceremonial cloak. He donned a simple set of protective attire, equipped with the shield generator Corin had provided and the concealed energy pistol. Her golden eyes flicked to him. "We'll have to present ourselves at the temple soon. The wardens have the authority to initiate the rite of fates once the moons converge." Dane exhaled. "And Veyron?" She nodded grimly. "He'll be there, presiding in some fashion. Legally, as my father and keeper of the throne, he has the right to oversee the ceremony. But how he'll appear, or in what capacity, I cannot say." Just then, their comm device buzzed. Dane answered, hearing the gruff voice of the mercenary woman from Viridian. "We're in orbit, hidden among the chaotic traffic. Once you're in place, give the signal, and we'll stir up a nice distraction." Dane closed the comm. "They're ready. Let's hope it's enough." They set out, weaving through the crowds. Pilgrims and visitors of all species thronged the path leading to the colossal temple, which rose like a black mountain of carved stone, its pinnacle crowned with spires that glowed faintly under the midday sun. As they approached, a contingent of spectral warden acolytes intercepted them. The acolytes wore dark robes with the triple moon emblem, and their eyes gleamed with the zeal of fanatics. "You," one rasped, pointing to Selara, "are the one for whom the rite is prepared." Selara inclined her head, doing her best to conceal her revulsion. "Yes, the day has come." The acolytes parted, allowing them to enter the grand hall. Inside, vaulted ceilings soared overhead, adorned with mosaics depicting cosmic battles and legendary unions of ancient bloodlines. Gigantic braziers burned with ghostly flames that flickered without smoke or sound. At the far end of the hall, A dais of black stone rose, etched with runes. Standing upon it was a robed figure with an ornate mask, likely the high officiator of the wardens. Around him loomed half a dozen armed wardens in dark armor. Dane's pulse quickened. Every step felt like treading on a knife's edge. To one side, a cluster of onlookers stood. Some wore lavish garments, signifying their status as diplomats or nobles. Others had the predatory stance of bounty hunters, scanning the crowd for any sign of vulnerability. Suddenly, the throng parted, and a hush swept the chamber. Standing there, in flowing black robes that seemed to devour the light, was Veyron. His face was partially visible now, revealing gaunt, pale features and eyes of bottomless darkness. A proud sneer curled his lips as he locked gaze with Selara. "My daughter," he intoned, voice echoing through the hall. "At last, you fulfill your destiny." She met his gaze without flinching. "My destiny is my own, father. You have no claim upon it." His cold laugh reverberated. "We shall see, child. The throne weeps for its rightful heir. Deny me all you wish, but the right of fates cannot be denied." The officiator stepped forward, raising his arms. "In the presence of the triple moons, we commence the ancient ceremony. Let the betrothed approach." Dane swallowed hard, stepping beside Selara. They ascended the dais. The onlookers closed in, forming a wide circle. Bounty hunters whispered into comm devices, eyes gleaming. Diplomats murmured among themselves. The temple's atmosphere crackled with anticipation. The officiator's voice rose. "Bride and groom, present your hands. Let the cosmic bond be sealed." Selara glanced at Dane, subtle tension in her face. They had practiced for this moment, memorizing the steps that might disrupt Veyron's hold. Slowly, they extended their hands. A swirling violet glow enveloped their fingers as the officiator chanted in an alien tongue. The dais hummed, runes igniting in a spiral of light. Dane felt a strange pull, like an invisible tide washing over his mind, merging his breath with Selara's. This is it, he thought. The right of fates. Suddenly, a powerful presence loomed beside them. Veyron, lifting a black scepter inlaid with shimmering crystals. "By my blood and right as keeper of the throne, I anoint this union." Selara's eyes flashed. She clenched Dane's hand and subtly channeled her telekinetic force. Sparks of purple energy crackled at her fingertips, colliding with the scepter's aura. A wave of force erupted, sending a visible shockwave through the temple. Acolytes staggered. Some onlookers cried out in alarm. The officiator's chant faltered momentarily. Veyron's sneer twisted into anger. "Child, do not test me." Selara drew a shuddering breath, her voice echoing in a defiant roar. "I claim my rightful place, not as a puppet, but as one who will free the throne from your tyranny." Before Veyron could respond, a sudden explosion rocked the temple's outer walls. The mercenaries had begun their diversion. Shouts and screams reverberated through the corridors as the structure trembled. In the confusion, Dane, remembering his role, triggered the small device Corrin had given them, a null-field emitter designed to momentarily disrupt the warden's cosmic channels. An invisible bubble of interference spread from the dais, warping the swirling lights. The officiator's eyes widened. "Sacrilege! Stop them!" Instantly, the armed wardens lunged forward, brandishing staffs that crackled with plasma edges. Acolytes scrambled, trying to uphold the ceremony while the temple quaked. Dane drew his pistol, firing at a warden who charged him. The shot glanced off the warden's armor, but it slowed him enough for Selara to hurl him aside with a telekinetic thrust. Nearby, Veyron roared in fury. The scepter in his grasp flared, channeling raw cosmic force. Bolts of dark energy lanced across the dais, forcing Selara and Dane to take cover behind a jutting piece of stone. The officiator tried to continue the rite, chanting words that echoed in the vaulted chamber. The swirling energy around Dane and Selara tugged at them, half complete, yet not sealed. If it finalized now, Veyron would likely seize control of that power. "Signal the mercenaries," Dane shouted over the din. Selara jammed a command into a wrist comm. At once, a second explosion rocked the temple's far side, and the ring of onlookers scattered in panic. Several bounty hunters opened fire randomly, trying to secure a prize in the chaos. Diplomats fled, shrieking. Amid the pandemonium, Veyron advanced, cloak billowing like living shadows. You cannot defy cosmic law, daughter. The throne is mine to command. She gritted her teeth, stepping forward. Not anymore. Their powers collided, a clash of swirling violet light and darkness that crackled with thunder. The temple floor split, sending shards of stone flying. Dane shielded his face, nearly knocked off his feet by the shockwave. In that moment, he realized he had to help Selara break Veyron's hold on the ceremony. Summoning his courage, Dane activated the shield generator on his belt and charged forward. Shots from wardens ricocheted off the shimmering field around him. "Selara," he yelled, tossing the null field emitter to her. She caught it deftly. The officiator tried to reinitiate the cosmic bond, chanting frantically. Selara turned the emitter's dial to maximum. A pulse of distortive energy rippled across the dais, unraveling the swirling lights that connected them. Veyron snarled, black eyes flaring with ancient rage. "You fool! You will doom us all." But it was too late. The partial bond shattered, sending a shockwave through the temple. Runes flickered and died. The triple moon alignment overhead began to glow outside, its power pressing down upon the ceremony. For a heartbeat, everything stood still. Time itself seemed to hold its breath. Then Selara reached out, channeling the triple moon energies directly through her lineage. She grasped Dane's hand, forging a new bond of her own making, severed from Veyron's domination. In that instant, cosmic power surged through them both. Dane's mind expanded, glimpsing the stars and the weaving tapestry of fate. He felt Selara's presence at his side, her spirit blazing with defiance and hope. Together, they anchored the right, but on their terms. Veyron roared, hurling a bolt of darkness that struck the dais, shattering stone. Dust and rubble rained down. When the debris cleared, Selara and Dane still stood, bathed in a violet glow, united. And overhead, the triple moons converged in a perfect alignment, their rays merging in a pillar of pale light that cascaded into the temple. The beam of moonlight struck Selara and Dane, enveloping them in a shimmering aura. All around, the temple's inhabitants stared in awe or in terror. The triple moon's power was no myth. It coursed tangibly through the dais. The officiator, cowering behind a fallen pillar, uttered a shaky gasp. "They have taken hold of the right themselves." Veyron, incensed, unleashed another wave of crackling darkness. It collided with the moonlight, creating a maelstrom of conflicting energies. The temple's walls groaned, threatening collapse. From outside came the distant rumble of starships, as the mercenaries clashed with warden reinforcements. The entire planet seemed to tremble with the tension of cosmic forces. "Your tyranny ends here," Selara shouted, voice amplified by the swirling energies. Veyron sneered, though fear flickered in his eyes. "You think you can outmatch me, child? I have centuries of knowledge, alliances that span the galaxy. Your power is but an ember." She raised a hand, channeling a surge of telekinetic force that hammered into him, driving him back several paces. "Not anymore. I have a husband now." The words sounded bizarre amid the chaos, but Dane felt a surge of adrenaline. Despite the strangeness of their union, they were bound by something far beyond mortal law. He stepped forward, brandishing his energy pistol. "Let her go, Veyron, or face the consequences." A dark laugh escaped the ancient alien. "You? A mere gambler, threatening me? Pathetic." Without warning, Veyron raised the scepter again, focusing its energies on Dane. For an instant, black lightning crackled across the dais, and Dane's shield generator fizzled, unable to withstand the raw power. Pain lanced through him, his vision dimming. Selara cried out, leaping between them, deflecting the brunt of the blow. The violet aura intensified around her. Dane gasped, regaining his balance as the lightning dissipated. Then, from the shattered roof above, a burst of cannon fire rained down. Mercenary dropships had forced an opening. The beams smashed through the temple's upper levels, forcing Veyron to break off his attack and dodge the debris. Seizing the moment, Selara reached deep into the swirling energies. "Dane, join me," she urged. He didn't fully understand, but he could feel her presence tugging at his very soul. Closing his eyes, he let their connection guide him. A rush of warmth enveloped his being. An image flashed in his mind, a great obsidian seat, pulsing with starlight, overshadowed by the specter of Veyron. They had to dethrone him metaphorically and literally, by seizing the cosmic right that the right of fates bestowed. A cascade of violet light erupted from Selara and Dane, washing across the dais. Veyron snarled, arms raised to shield himself, as the energy slammed into him. Across the temple, wardens and onlookers alike dropped to their knees, buffeted by the wave's sheer force. In that blinding radiance, the triple moon's alignment reached its peak, and a silent roar of astral power echoed through every corner of Rayleigh. When the light subsided, Selara and Dane stood at the center, hands clasped, their foreheads crowned by faint halos of moonlight. Veyron lay sprawled against a broken pillar, scepter rolling from his grip. Dazed, he struggled to stand. "This cannot be," he rasped, eyes burning with fury and disbelief. "I am the keeper of the throne." Selara regarded him with a solemn gaze. "Not anymore, father. The rite is complete, and I have taken the throne's authority, shared with my bonded consort, Dane." A hush fell over the temple, broken only by the distant rumble of sporadic battles outside. The officiator, trembling, approached. Removing his mask, he revealed an aged, alien face streaked with tears of awe. "This is unprecedented," he whispered, bowing. "The rite has transferred the throne's cosmic bond to you, princess, and to your consort." The spectral wardens recognized the outcome. Veyron lurched forward, only to be seized by a pair of heavily armed mercenaries who had rushed in from outside. The stocky man from Viridian sneered. "Got a nice bounty on this one." Selara closed her eyes, exhaling a long breath. No, he must answer for his crimes before the galaxy's council. Let him face judgment, not execution or indefinite imprisonment by an unscrupulous band. The mercenaries exchanged glances. The woman shrugged. "If you say so, princess. But that bounty's worth a fortune." Dane stepped in. "I'm sure there will be plenty of reward for you if the new order stands. Consider this an investment." Reluctantly, the mercenaries nodded, hauling Veyron away. He spat curses, vowing revenge, even as his power receded into the shadows. The officiator sank to his knees before Selara and Dane. By the triple moons, a new age dawns. The galaxy will heed the rightful queen of the obsidian throne and her chosen king. Dane's eyes widened at the term king, but the officiator's words reverberated through the onlookers. Some turned to flee, uncertain of what the future held, while others knelt, offering fealty in the ancient tradition. An exhausted hush settled over the dais. Selara looked at Dane, her expression torn between relief and the daunting realization of what they had just become. In the weeks that followed, Rayleigh became a crucible for change. Word spread across the star lanes that Veyron, the once unassailable keeper of the throne, had been usurped in a cosmic ceremony. Selara, now recognized as the rightful heir, called upon the old alliances and treaties to stabilize the fractured dominions. Dane found himself thrust into a role he never imagined, that of consort to a newly ascendant queen. Though the galaxy's laws recognized their union, many star systems eyed him with suspicion or outright hostility. Diplomats from 1,000 worlds arrived, seeking new treaties or alliances, anxious to see how Selara would wield her newfound authority. Meanwhile, the spectral wardens, shaken by the rite's unprecedented outcome, retreated to their fortress worlds to deliberate. Their officiator, who had witnessed the entire event, declared that cosmic law had been satisfied. The contract was valid, and the power had indeed shifted to Selara and Dane. Veyron, stripped of his official status, was placed under secure guard. Rumors abounded that he still possessed hidden caches of forbidden technology and loyal followers scattered throughout the galaxy. But for now, his immediate threat was contained. Selara convened a council in the Great Hall of the newly rebuilt temple. Representatives from major star systems, guilds, and mercenary groups gathered under the watchful eye of Rayleigh's triple moons, now past their perfect alignment. Together, they began drafting charters to ensure fairness, trade equality, and, above all, to dismantle the oppressive structures that Veyron had enforced. Dane stood at Selara's side during these long sessions, often silent, but learning rapidly. His life had changed from a desperate gambler to a figure in the galaxy's shaping. He offered practical insights, reminding the council that starships still needed resources, that trade routes must remain open, and that the new regime could not simply rely on mystical power to govern. Late one evening, after a particularly grueling council meeting, Selara and Dane found a moment's respite in a secluded courtyard near the temple. A quiet fountain bubbled, and lanterns glowed softly along the stone walls. Selara sank onto a bench with a weary sigh. I never realized how tiring it would be to rule, even in these early stages. Dane sat beside her. At least you're not alone, he offered, trying a smile. She regarded him, her golden eyes reflecting the lantern light. That means more to me than you know, Dane. A hush lingered. The night air was cool against their skin. Far above, the three moons hung in separate arcs, their alignment long since past, yet their faint synergy still palpable in the atmosphere. Finally, Dane spoke, voice low. So about us. This forced marriage, it's become something else now, hasn't it? She nodded slowly. We might have begun as pawns in my father's game, but the bond we share, both legal and cosmic, has evolved. I can feel your presence in my mind, as if we're linked by more than just the right. He reached for her hand, hesitating slightly before their fingers intertwined. I don't pretend to understand all this cosmic stuff, but I do know I care about what happens to you, and to this galaxy you're trying to save. A gentle smile curved her lips. Then perhaps we can build something real out of this improbable union. They leaned closer, the moment thick with unspoken emotion. The fountain's gentle murmur served as their only witness. Before words could fail them, they closed the distance, sealing the night with a soft kiss. A fragile promise of hope amid the swirling changes of an entire galaxy. Months later, the galaxy looked different than it had before. Though far from perfect, a new chapter had begun. The oppressive strangleholds of certain factions were dismantled, replaced by a more balanced council that respected the autonomy of star systems. Selara and Dane traveled often, sometimes together, sometimes apart, to visit distant worlds, forging alliances and laying the groundwork for lasting peace. They were not naive. They knew that lurking in the darkness were those who longed for Veyron's return or who sought to exploit the power vacuum for themselves. But each day they secured more allies, and each day they nurtured the fragile unity that now shaped the region. The obsidian throne itself was moved from its hidden fortress to a public hall on Rayleigh, where it was displayed as a symbol, not of unchecked dominance, but of responsibility shared among leaders and peoples. The triple moons became emblematic of the vow Selara and Dane had taken. 3 separate celestial bodies, converging in harmony when needed, yet maintaining their own unique orbits. As for their personal relationship, it blossomed in ways neither had expected. Beneath the regal titles and political responsibilities, they found shared humor, trust, and even love. Dane's roguish spirit tempered Selara's regal bearing, while her deep convictions inspired him to be more than just a drifting pilot. One evening, they returned to Zyphos Station, the place where everything had started. Clad in more humble attire, they slipped into the last drift cantina, incognito. The neon lights still flickered, the same scaly Trinoran barkeep still polishing glasses behind the bar. They played a single hand of cards at that corner table, this time not for cosmic stakes, but for old times' sake. Dane won again, but only by a narrow margin. Selara laughed, the tension that once defined her life now replaced by a light-hearted radiance. Soon after, they departed, leaving behind a rumor that a strange couple, bearing faint resemblance to the new queen and king of the Obsidian Throne, had graced the station. But no one believed such lofty figures would appear in a dingy cantina, so the tale passed into local legend. Back aboard their vessel, the Starblade Phantom, they looked out upon the swirling cosmos. Selara's hand rested in Dane's, their bond transcending legal codes and cosmic rights. They were partners now, in every sense. A trill from the comm console drew their attention. Another distant world requested an audience, hoping to join the new order. Dane grinned. Shall we? Selara's golden eyes sparkled. We shall. The ship's engines roared to life, propelling them into the starry expanse. Their future was unknown, but they faced it together, forging their own destiny. Somewhere in that cosmic ocean, the faint echo of Veyron's bitter laughter still lingered, yet overshadowed by the resounding hope sparked by a gambler and a princess who dared to defy an ancient alien's game. And thus, Under the endless canopy of stars, a happy horizon stretched before them, full of challenges, triumphs, and the promise of a galaxy reshaped by unity and love.